Hi, and welcome to part 3 of our PowerShell Universal Project series with our Active Directory dashboard. In the last video, we went ahead and we actually designed our dashboard. So here's our dashboard that we designed in the last video. And in the first video, we actually created all of our API endpoints that we're going to be using to actually add functionality to this web page. So today, what we're going to be really focusing on is being able to put in a username in this box here and then hit search or press enter, and then it go into Active Directory and it fetch all of the user details and the group membership and load those in, and also activate and deactivate the buttons as needed based on the results coming back. So let's go ahead and let's actually get started here. So let's go into our PowerShell Universal dashboard here. Going to user interfaces, go into apps. We're going to go into our Active Directory tool, and we're going to go into our page and just open it up bigger here. And let me just zoom in so you guys can actually see what we're doing. So we have this on submit button in our form here. So we're just looking in the grid for search field. So for me, this is on line 7. We have our text box for our username. And then the on submit is empty. So we're just going to hit enter there because this is where we're actually going to start coding what we need. So the first thing that we're actually going to want to do is I like to just wrap this entire thing in actually a try catch block. So we're just going to do a try catch right off the bat here. Now, you don't really need to do this. You're going to get some nasty looking error messages potentially. But I like to just start off with the try catch just to be safe. And then the first line in our try statement is just going to be setting our variable called username. And we're going to make that equal to event data dot username. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to do a variable called user details. And we're going to make that equal to invoke REST method. And then we're going to do a dash URI. And in here, we're going to put in double quotes here. We're going to do HTTP : // localhost : 5000 / get user / $username. And then we're going to want to make sure that we have the method set to get, and that should be good. And then all we're going to do here is let's actually just go ahead and let's just try to see if we can set up one of our, just to make sure that the details are coming in. Let's grab the name and set the name in user details here. So what we can actually do very easily, instead of just doing the one, we can actually go ahead and do all of them. It's pretty easy. So in case you guys don't remember, what we did, we had named user details and then the name of the property here. And the reason why we did that is because we can actually automate loading in all the property values. So what we're actually going to go ahead and do is go ahead and put the create a variable called properties. And we're going to make that equal to a parentheses user details. We're going to pipe that to get member. And then we're going to pipe that to where member type is equal to note property. And then we're going to do dot name. All right, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to do is for each property in properties, open and close the curly bracket. We're going to do set UD element, and then the ID for that is going to be user details $property. So we're dynamically creating that property based on the properties coming back from user details. And then we're going to do a dash properties, and then we're going to specify what we're going to be changing. So that's going to be the @ symbol and then curly bracket to specify an object here. And we're going to do content equals double quotes $ property. So it puts the name of the property that we're putting, colon, $ parentheses, $ user details dot $ property. And that should be good. Now, this doesn't do everything that we're wanting to do just yet, but it's going to let us just test to make sure that it does actually work. So if I put in a actual accurate username here and I hit search, we get all of our details back. Now, we are missing some. Now, if you do remember, what we're missing here is going to be the enabled field and password last set, I believe. Let me just go ahead and look at the code here. Yeah, so it is going to be the, user principal name we did not get back. And the last bad password attempt, I believe we did not get back, right? Yeah, because we got the enabled. So all we're missing is those two here. So let's see why we did not get those two. So let me just make sure that user principal name, that's good. That seems good there. Last bad password attempt. So that's actually not good. So let me just save that. And that should time that out. Let me just test that out now. Test employee 3. We get that back. So now let me just go look at the API here. And let's look at what we get back for the get user username here. Let's go edit. Make this big here. And it is user principal name. So all I'm going to do is actually just copy paste this here. Name. That looks like it's all spelt correctly here. And we can actually just make sure we can test it out. So we can do our test employee 3 and hit run here. And let's just make sure that our user principal name, it does come back. So let's just make sure that we actually spelt it correctly here. So let's go back into our apps. Go into our edit details. Let's pull this code up here. User details. Parentheses. Name. That looks the same. Let's go see here if we can pull up a different user here. There's our employee 1. There's our user principal name. Test employee 3. We have our user principal name. So everything is good there. So you're just going to want to make sure that you don't have any typos, because that will definitely affect your results here. And as I say always in the channel, I kind of like to leave my mistakes here. This way you guys can see that making mistakes is definitely normal, especially in programming, especially typos. That will usually be where your errors are. So we're pulling back all the details here. Everything looks really, really good. Everything's fine. Now let's go ahead and let's just put in a username that doesn't actually exist. We don't get anything back, and nothing really edits, like nothing changes here. We don't really know what's going on. That's because the try catch, if we didn't have the try catch, we would get an ugly error message back, which that's fine because we have the try catch statement in there, but we kind of still want to give something to the user to say, hey, there was no user found. So what I like to do is in the catch statement here is I like to add a show UD modal And then what I like to do is put the severity. So SEVERI, severity, as error here. Hopefully that will work out here. And we're going to put text as username not found. Oh, sorry. This is not correct. So once we have our show UD modal, we need to put our content. That's why it wasn't coming up for me. And then our curly bracket. And then we're going to do a new dash UD alert with a severity of error, because it is an error that we're showing. And then our text is we're going to put username not found. And then what I like to do is I like to just do a dash and then do a $ parentheses to do a variable wrapper. And all I'm going to do is just a $_ which is actually going to pass the error message back to the user to actually see what the actual error message coming back from Active Directory was. So if we actually do that there, we go ahead, we minimize that. It will have refreshed here. Let's do test employee 6. And we get our nice little error message here. We get username not found, cannot find an object with identity test employee 6 under the domain controller jacked.ca. So that is actually great. And we can actually change this to 3. Everything loads in. Now, if we do 6, we still have a very similar issue. We get the error at least, but it doesn't clear out all of these data points. So we're still going to want to do that as well. But let's go back into our code here. And let's get this error handling at least working as well, just to be sure that everything is good there. So once we have our catch, all we need to do is then kind of redo this set UD element. Now, the only thing is with this is we will actually have to do each one individually because we don't actually have our users back. So what we can do here is let's just go ahead and paste this set UD element. And what we're going to want to make sure that we do is go through each one. So we're going to do name here, and then it's always going to be an empty content here. And all I like to do is I like to copy paste this one. And then we have username, I believe, as well. And then user principal name as the other one. And then we're going to have, I believe it is employee ID. And then we're going to have title. Now, of course, I can actually just grab these from down here as well. So there is title. So now we're at enabled, password expired, locked out, and last bad password attempts. All I'm actually going to do is just copy these because these are the little bit longer ones. And there's 4 of them. So let's just copy over 4 here. And let's go ahead and let's cut this out of here. Paste that in there. Cut that out of here. Paste that in here. Cut the locked out. Paste that in here. Last bad password attempt as well. All right, so then we can erase all of this here. And now if we hit save, we can actually go ahead and test it out right away. So if we actually load in accurate data here, test employee 3, we see all of the data come in. If we do test employee 6, we get our error. And it's nice, it erases all of our user details. So that's perfect. We have the user details coming in to our application, which is great. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add our group membership here. Or actually what we can do before we do the group membership, let's go ahead and let's add the functionality or I shouldn't say add the functionality, but let's make our buttons active for the ones that need to be actually active. So what this is actually going to be is we want to be sure that we activate the reset password, because that one should be automatically activated because you're able to reset anyone's password. The disable account will only be active if the account is enabled. The enable account button will only be active if the account is disabled. And the unlock button will only be active once the account is locked. So let's go ahead, let's go into our code here. And let's go ahead and let's add our button here, or the code to make our button active is we're going to do set UD element ID, and our button is called reset password. And then our properties that we want to do here is going to be the @ symbol, curly bracket, and it's going to be disabled equals false. So it is not going to be disabled, which means it's going to be active. And what we can go ahead and do is just to make sure that that actually is working. This is something that I really like to do every time that I add a little bit of functionality in there. I like to just make sure that it's working. And there is our reset password button working just there. It is now active, which is perfect. Now, once again, if we do 6 here and it errors out, what we do need to make sure, that we are deactivating that button if we get an error. So what I like to do is just copy that right below into our catch statement, and it is just going to go from false to true here. So that's perfect. Now what we need to do is do our other buttons. So let's go ahead and let's do the unlock account button here. So we're going to do if the user details dot locked out is equal to true. Now, I know that you don't need to do the equals true. You could, in theory, just do if user details dot locked out. I like to just make it so it's very readable for whoever comes in here next to read the code. So if the account is locked out, what we want to do is we want to, let's copy this here. We want to set the UD element of unlock account to this disabled equals false. And that means it's going to be active, which means if the account is locked out, we want the button to be enabled. Else, what we want to do is we want the button to be disabled. All right, and then all we want to do is, as always, let's just copy this disabled equals true here. And we just want to paste that into our catch statement. So the button will be disabled as soon as we make an error in a username. And we can go ahead, we can actually go ahead and test this once again. Let's do test employee 3. We pull in our user. We can see that it is not locked out. I wonder if I have a user that's actually locked out here so we can actually test it properly. If not, all we need to do is just go ahead and let's run it as a different user. And let's do it for test employee 3 here. Test employee 3. Test employee 3. All right, so there it goes. It's locked out. So now let's do our test employee 3 here. Locked out is true, and we have our unlock button active. And now if I enter a wrong user, as you can see, the button goes deactivated again. If I go from employee 1, who is not locked out, to test employee 3, the unlock button activates, and then same thing if we just go back to employee 1, the button deactivates. So everything there is working great. So now the only buttons that we need to worry about are the enabled buttons. So what we're going to do is we're just going to scroll back to the top, and it's going to be a very similar functionality to the locked out one. So we're just going to copy our if statement, but this time it's going to be if user details dot enabled equals true. And then it's not going to be the unlock account. We're going to do the disable account first. And then we're just going to copy and paste this here and then have the enable account. So we're going to have that ready. All right, so if the account is enabled, what we want to do is only make the disable button activated. Because the account is enabled, we can only disable the account. So the enable account button will be disabled. The disable account will be enabled. So the disabled equals false. Otherwise, when the account is disabled, what we actually want to do is disable the disable account button and enable the enable account button. So that should all be good. So if we actually go ahead and save that here, and let's go back into our code, test employee 3. We have enabled equals true. So our disable account button is there. Let's just go ahead, because our buttons don't work yet. What we do need to do is we need to go into our Active Directory. Let's just disable the test employee 3, and let's hit search again. And now only the enable button is active. So that is perfect. But once again, what we actually forgot to do was if I go in and press employee 6 and get an error, we don't disable those buttons. So we just want to go ahead, make sure that we add those in here. So all I'm going to do is just copy paste these two set UD elements and make sure that both of them are set to disable equals true here, which is perfect. So that should all be good. So now the only thing that we really have left to do is load in the groups, which is going to be a very, very similar idea. What I like to do is make all my API calls at the top here. So what we're going to do here is we are just going to go ahead and make a variable called user groups. And we're going to make that equal to invoke dash rest method URI. And then in there is going to be HTTP : localhost : 5000 get user groups /$ username. And our method once again is just get. And then all we want to do here for this one is actually is pretty easy. I usually do this one right at the top here because it's very simple. We're just going to do a set UD element. ID is going to be groups because that is our table name. Our properties is going to be the @ symbol and then curly brackets. And data is going to be user groups here. And then all we really want to do, oops, make sure that is spelt properly, is we also just want to go ahead and make sure that we do that in the catch statement as well. Now the catch statement will be a little bit different. And what I'm going to do at the catch statement is just put that as the first one, just to kind of follow the order a little bit. And data is just going to be equal a empty pair of single quotes because we don't want any data in there because there's no data to load. So that should actually be good here. Let's go ahead and let's go back into our application. Let's do test employee 3. We can see that the enable account button is active because it's not enabled. It's not locked out, so that's fine. And we can see that our reset password's enabled, and we can actually even see the groups are loading in very nicely here. So that is perfect. And then if we just do employee 1, let's see what groups are they a part of. So they're a part of a bit more groups, and we can also see that we have multiple pages in our table there, which is really, really nice. And if for some reason we typed in an employee that did not exist, we get our error message. Everything then goes back empty, and you can do another search, and you should be on your way, and everything should be working. So now that we've added in this basic search functionality now, the only thing that we have left to do on the next few videos is add functionality to all of these buttons. So we want to be able to unlock the account from here, enable the account from here, disable the account from here, and also reset the user's password and display a little message showing the new password for that user. And that is basically it. We are almost all done this dashboard. If you guys want to see more PowerShell Universal, let me know in the comment section down below, and maybe what type of application you guys would like us to build. Or if you guys would like to add maybe some features into this application, let me know. We can add those features as well as later videos come out. If you guys haven't already, please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, also hit that notification bell to be notified when that next video comes out, and I will see you guys on the next video.